Hello, I'm Cuddly Bunny, and welcome to the T26E4 SuperPershing review, the Tier 8 premium medium tank in the US line. So what's this tank about? Well, it's meant to be mostly about its armor. So let's take a look at that. The lower plate is around 200 millimeters. So for a weak spot, it's a pretty good weak spot actually, especially if they're shooting from above you, trying to shoot down on it. It's going to be a pretty hard thing to penetrate for most things your tier and lower. The upper plate is kind of more of a mixed bag though. The first area here, the lower upper plate I guess we'll call it, is pretty good at about 230 or so. So IS-3s, most medium tanks, your tier and below are going to really struggle along this area here. But the problem is, if you have a look behind here, there's a second zone, which is lower armor. So above this area is a pretty large weak spot, which is pretty much everything above it. So ISs, KV1, even the KV1S, IS2s, everything kind of 170 pen-ish, have a okay chance of penetrating, especially in this area. It'll be a bit harder on the cheeks, but it's a real pretty big weak spot that's not often shot at purposefully, but it does penetrate quite often. Obviously your biggest weak spot in the front plate is the MG port here, which is really obvious, so anyone with a small amount of intelligence will just shoot through this every time. So the front plate is, well, the whole armor in general at the front is just kind of semi-reliable. For a tank that's meant to be based on its armor, it's not really that effective. It is space though, which does mean heat shells and things like that are quite ineffective against it, and HE, you have pretty good protection from it. And you can angle it, as you see here, but the problem with angling is the sides are okay, they're not too bad, but this is the big problem here. You have a kind of shoulder area here that's not covered by any of the space armor, which means that it's pretty easy to penetrate from anyone if you're angled. So if you see an angled SuperPershing, just take a shot here. It's just so easy to penetrate, and you will pretty much every time. So that's pretty much it for the hull armor. The side armor is pretty thin at it's okay here, 76mm. It does go down to 51. The arse is 51 as well. So that's about it really hull armor wise. The engine deck and the top of the turret are in 25mm, which means when you're side scraping, people can't overmatch it by shooting at the back of your tank. And also artillery will very regularly penetrate you if it hits you. So yeah, I mean, just look at that, it's a massive target. So yeah, artillery is kind of a pretty big bane of the existence of this. So you might be thinking, okay, so the hull armor is just kind of average, so what about the turret? Well, it's pretty bad actually, for what you would kind of expect. The gun depression is -10, so it can kind of angle pretty well downwards, if I had done that properly and not made it spin around instead. But the problem is, it's still not very good, even when they're going to be shooting at you from below down. It's going to struggle, it's not going to be that good anyway. Most of it is around 200mm, which means IS-3s, most of the tier 8 heavy tanks are going to be able to penetrate this entire thing pretty much. There are some strong points like here, 340, a few other parts here and there, just kind of randomly around. But you will find that this gets penetrated pretty often, so even at range, this armor is not, I mean, when it's facing forwards, obviously, you'd think that at range it might not be so bad, but you get penetrated by all kinds of things. It's pretty annoying, actually. It's got some side space armor as well, which is still pretty much in the same book, about 200mm, able to bounce. But as you can see, there's pretty big weak spots in it as well. The cupolas are easy to hit, and they're not that strong. Well, they're pretty strong for weak spots, I guess. There are some 170 areas, some 150s. But this entire everything above this space armor part is going to be pretty easy to penetrate. You also have the cheeks at the side of the turret. And yeah, so overall it's pretty good armor against lower tiers, but anyone that knows what they're doing is going to penetrate you every time. And not just that, those who don't might just get lucky and penetrate you anyway because of the sheer amount of weak spots on this thing. It's just the areas which are well defended aren't really kind of like the majority of the tank, really. So a bit of a shame there. So does it have any redeeming features other than that? Let's have a look. I'm comparing it to the normal Pershing, which obviously is a tier 8 medium tank. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's a lot faster than this. It's got significantly better power to weight ratio. The terrain resistance, everything is slower on this version, which you'd kind of expect for the added weight. But as you'll see in the games a bit later, it is a really slow tank, and you just always think, yeah, this probably isn't worth the trade-off. The aiming circle spread as well is worse, but not by much. Overall, probably about 2% overall most of the areas. As you see, gun depression minus 10 degrees, so that's good. Turret traverse speed of only 25, so the turret really feels sluggish when you're trying to track targets. Gun-wise, you have less penetration than the normal Pershing at only 170mm. Not sure why that is, because otherwise it's pretty much exactly the same gun. So yeah, it's a little bit sad, but a thing to note is that the premium ammo is really good. What is it? 258mm. So yeah, 170 with normal AP, which is what you're going to be wanting to use the vast majority of the time because it's a tier 8 premium, so it's made for making money. But you do always have to kind of throw back to the 258mm of premium. But anyway, that's about enough. Oh, actually, one quick thing is the view range is 390 meters, which is pretty good, actually. It's kind of, well, it's worse than the normal Pershing, but it's good for a heavy tank, which is basically how this plays. So instead of wasting more time in here, let's just take a look at the game and see how this tank feels. Right, so here we are on Kharkov. This was actually, I think, the second game I ever played on this map, so kind of interesting. But as you can see, mobility is god-awful. This thing is so slow. It's slow at turning, well, the turret traverse is okay, but everything else about this thing is just really, really bad. There's no way this feels like a medium tank at all. It's a heavy tank. So anyway, on to what I'm doing here. As I've said, this is one of the first few games I played. I'm moving up into a position where basically I just know there are bad guys and some cover that might be up to abuse to get some damage done. Because the main thing you're going to be playing this for is just get damage done so you can get money, basically. I've got a K support, I've got a Tiger 2, and there's a Tiger 1 behind me, so I'm not too worried. I push on through here, and an IS appears. I try and snipe his cupola here, but I mean, there is a pretty low chance that I'm probably going to hit anyway, so I'm not too worried about that missing. And now I'm thinking maybe I should push up next to where that Tiger 2 is, try and use the cover, but there's quite a lot of them there, and we're pretty easily rushed if I do this, and you can get shot from the left side there. So I decide, no, I'm just going to find some cover here and try and stop them from moving up. As you saw there, the IS got a shot on me. Not only did he get a shot on me, he managed to take out my loader. So that's very nice. The place where you're going to get shot a lot is this cupola on your turret, because it's one of your weak spots. And your loader does like to sit there and die, so there you go. There's another down point, is just the loader dies a lot in this tank. So now I think I'm in an okay position here. I'm pretty sure most of the vast majority of my hull is covered. So all they should be able to do is shoot at my turret. So I'm not too worried about return fire. I was thinking I should bounce the vast majority of these shots from the ISs and IS-2s, because their guns aren't particularly accurate, so sniping my cupola again might be a bit tough. I was completely wrong in this aspect. Somehow I didn't notice that tank you saw in the archway, but I still get a shot into the IS, so I don't lose too much damage. It's quite amazing sometimes when you watch back these replays and you just see the things you've missed sometimes. So there we go, there's one IS down, 916 damage. You can see the DPM is not bad. I take another hit. I'm pretty certain that was straight in my turret again. I remember when I checked this replay last time, it was just straight into my turret. He managed to penetrate with a very high roll through my spaced armor, so how very nice of him. So my Tiger 1 is in pretty serious problems here. He's got a lot of people around him, and right now I'm just thinking I'm just going to have to try and conserve my health for when they rush me inevitably in a very short amount of time while getting some damage done while they're a little bit distracted. So there's my friend there, very sad. The IS, I try and get a quick shot off onto him. I end up hitting the wall, I think, in front of me, which is, yeah. I couldn't risk aiming that shot because, well, he's managed to penetrate me pretty reliably so far, so I don't really like the idea of losing any more health. And there we go, T29. He manages to shoot my turret and it bounces, interestingly enough, and now that's game over for him because I've got a pretty good reload. In a one-on-one engagement against anything with 390 alpha, you will do quite well. You'll notice my tracks managed to absorb a shot there, which was just luck. Don't expect that to happen. Your side armor is actually pretty bad. And now I'm just searching for a weak spot. I think, that weak spot. Nope, that bounced somehow. So I'm just trying to search for another one now. So that was a donkey shot really. I was aiming for the turret ring, but it just went straight into his mantlet. He manages to penetrate me, not sure where, but it matters not because I wimp out at low premium and just shooting back through the turret ring again. On retrospect, I didn't need to do that. I could have shot where I originally shot, and it was just a really low roll, which is why I bounced, but whatever. I also get a shot into the side of the IS-3, which finishes him off, and it wasn't too much of a waste of a premium shell there either, because he's got pretty good side armor. Anyway, that's about it for this game. Nothing else happens, so let's just move on to the next one. Okay, so on to the next game. Here I am on Fjords. Yeah, that's how you say that word. I wasn't so sure for a second there. And I just got up this hill quick enough to kill the SDA-1. It's 1240, and I just got up the top of this hill. That's how bad the mobility is. You'll spend most of your time just travelling to places. So anyway, how do you play this game? Well, or this tank even, well, you basically just have to play really aggressive. That's what I'm doing anyway, most of the time in my games. It works out okay. I mean, sometimes you get surrounded and exploded, but the times where you're not left behind your entire team because they're crushing, or you just arrive somewhere too late to help out and you lose the game because of that, it's pretty high ratio, so I generally do stupid things like this, which is drive into the middle of a field, even though there's 3 artillery on their team, and just kind of hope for the best, get in people's faces and shoot them. Yeah, that's really how I've just managed to make this tank work. It does work at medium ranges as well, hull down, but as I said, you're going to regret that if your team pushes up, because you're never going to get any more damage in for the rest of the game. It's a real pain like that. So yeah, I get about 1,600 or so damage a game in this thing, 1,700 maybe, and I just achieve that mostly by driving forwards and shooting people. So it's a nice and simple tank to drive, I guess, especially as you don't even have to angle too much because you just end up getting shot through your shoulder plates if you do. Let's just go over the ratings, I guess. There's not much to say about this thing. It's a really average tank. So as you can see in the last game, sometimes the armor is just worthless, and in this game it works out really well. Just the Panthers were idiots and kept somehow bouncing off me. I think they must have been shooting the lower upper frontal plate, the strong point I showed you, and just at bad angles, so I don't get penetrated once, I think, from the Panther and the Panther 2, and I think the Panther 2 was firing apcr as well. That's that standard, I don't think it is Panther 2 though. So yeah, let's just go over the ratings. So we'll start with mobility. Actually no, we'll start with armor, the good point. It can have 6 out of 10. That's really all it's going to get. It's too unreliable for you to drive around a corner and expect to bounce. And just every time you need it to, it's like you're fighting against an IS or something like that at medium ranges and you really need it to bounce to win the game. It's going to go through because just screw you. That's my experience with it anyway. So it's only getting 6 out of 10 just because if it had like really good or average side armor as well, I guess it does have average side armor. Maybe if it was 76mm across that entire side and the little shoulder plates I showed you were a bit stronger, it would be more effective because you could angle properly. But with the weak spots as they are, it's pretty pointless. And as I said in the review, even when people are not trying to shoot your weak spots, sometimes they'll just luckily penetrate because you have so many of them. So yeah, armor only 6 out of 10. It's really not that good. The mobility, 2 out of 10.
I mean, there are slower tanks in this thing, and it's slightly harder to circle than some of the heavy tanks because it's got okay-ish turret traverse and track traverse, but mostly it's just god-awful, and you're going to hate driving this thing. The problem with this tank is it's not fun to drive at all, and if you want to buy it to make lots of money, it's kind of annoying because it's so boring to drive most of the time. So yeah, mobility 2 out of 10. What's next? The weaponry. Well, the gun is just average at best, you could really call it. Well, unless you just loaded gold all the time, but what's the point of having a premium tank to make money if you're just spamming gold all the time? So it's really average aim time, average accuracy, average, well, it's got okay damage for a medium tank, bad damage for a heavy tank. So it's only getting 5 out of 10. It'd probably get 6 out of 10 if it was on something with speed, because you could flank and things like that in it, but with this thing you can't flank because it's too slow, so it's a pretty terrible gun for this machine anyway. So yeah, that's about it. Other stats to take note of, as I said, were the view range is really good. Money making ability is okay. I make about 60-70k a game usually. View range is good, 390 meters, and that's really about it to say about this tank. It's got a pretty big annoyance, which is artillery loves to explode it in one shot, but that's just your slow tanks for you. So it's actually going to get an 8 out of 10 for other stats because of the view range and the money making ability. So overall, 5 out of 10 this thing can have. I would say it's probably the worst tier 8 premium in my eyes anyway. I feel like I could do more in a T34. I feel like I'm going to make more money in a T34. My T34-3 hits, well, it doesn't hit more often, but it's so much more fun to drive. It's a really, really pretty subpar tank in general. The only saving factor is the fact that it is really cheap at 7,200 gold. So if you're on a budget and you want a premium tank, then I guess get it, but otherwise I'd recommend a T34 or something like that. Just it's it's really boring to drive, and it's not even that good. It trades so many things for its armor, which is too unreliable to really count on all the time. So that pretty much sums up the SuperPershing. I don't like it, but I'm more of a faster playstyle. So you may disagree with me. You may think that the armor is worth the trade for the really slow things, but I like to be able to kind of make more of an impact in my games. If I'm too slow to get back to a cap to reset, then I'm really annoyed by that fact. If I'm too slow to get out of a jam, which pretty much any other medium tank can, I'm annoyed by that. And if I can't flank something, then I'm really annoyed by it. I mean, this thing sees E75s and STIs. I mean, with your normal AP ammo, there's nothing you can do against the front of them. So basically, Wargaming are saying, well, load apcr, and it's really annoying anyway. So yeah, as you can see, generally a pretty negative attitude towards this tank. I did get it for free for the mission, so I can't complain too much. I would recommend getting another premium tank if you can afford it. If you really can't, then go for it. It makes okay money, as I said. 60-70k credits you should be expecting if you don't spam apcr all the time. So yeah, that's about it. So thank you very much for watching. I'll keep doing more videos, so subscribe if you want, and I will see you all next time.